Hello, howdy howdy. How's it going, my friends, my pals? I hope all is well. My cats are running around at 500 miles an hour. They decided now's the time. We must run. Oh my god, they're going so fast. My cats are so fast. Can we be chill about this? Kittens. Kittens. I hate that. How's it going? Hello, hello. Lots of lemons, I'm assuming. All I see is the Mons right now. I need to create a post on the McKay and Gray channel to share the video. If I go to the Discord, I really need to change the Discord so that it doesn't say a vlog, a new vlog, because that's not really helpful. It's not really helpful. Okay, so we want to do the post. We go paste, and we say, I'm finally learning the Hollow Knight. And I'll use an image. Select image from your computer. Yeah. Okay. Post. Wait, I should say like streaming now, shouldn't I? There. That fits. Man, my posts are nothing but my new channel. Okay, switch back to the gaming channel. Man, this is my second stream today. I've been doing React content. Hello, Dusty Doggo. Hello, Snuffy. I'm looking at you guys now. I can see you guys now. Yeah, so this morning we watched the Xbox showcase. And my goodness, that was a lot of games that I didn't care about. Surprisingly, the vertical stream did all right. We had like 20 viewers. Um, which is pretty decent. It was getting served to a lot of people. That like peak 20 concurrence is pretty all right, I would say. Hello, Moon. Yeah, you're not late. Yeah, I'm trying to delay a little bit. I know it takes a bit for people to filter in. I really need like for one, Ursula's been working on my VTube model. Right now I'm still using the old one, but it should be the case that my ears will stop flicking as much. I'm gonna keep my eyes the same, and I'm gonna get a bunch of emotions, and then we're done. But we have enough to start reacting to things. Guys, is Scug good? You getting Scug? You can commentate. Glow up VTuber? Yeah, we're gonna glow up. I'm gonna move you guys, chat. Do you wanna hang out down here instead? Where would be a good place for you guys? Where do you wanna be? Do you wanna be up in this corner? Or are you scared? Are you scared to be in a new corner? We need grumpy bones. Right now what we have is sad. That's just me turning my head down. And yeah. Still in animation class. Scug. No Scug. We Scugless. One sec. It keeps disconnecting me. Okay, now it should be, Gug should be good. I think I have made chat too tall. Man, chat disappears so fast now. Have you guys noticed that? The new chat just goes fast. I feel like I need to fix that. Has it been going for you? It's good. It's good. I'm nervous. I've never been a React streamer. I did my first reaction with Ursula today. And now I'm like, oh God. Oh Lord. What do I do? Yeah. I wanted to sit down and edit, but instead I spent the whole time making grilled cheese and playing piano. Do you guys ever do that? I don't get my piano greasy, I swear, okay? You always go above and beyond, huh? I need to be more ambitious? You being ambitious? Ursula did her reaction to the zine, which is pretty cool. To those of you who are in the know. So this video is like an hour and a half. If I react properly, it could take all night. Hello, Kendricks. Yeah, we could. I guess we could start. Are you guys ready for this? I'm not ready. Personally, not ready. I've already watched 1 second. I'm sorry. We're watching the Mossbag video. The mostly complete Hollow Knight lore. So, what are we doing today? Today, we are watching a video.
I was so glad after I saw the Xbox stream was in the afternoon for me until I realized I arrived at the tail end and the footage cut out taut.
No. Yeah, we reacted to the Xbox stream today. I had to wake up super early for me. I was having stress dreams. I was like, oh God, I promised I'd be here. You play Roblox? Nah, I don't play Roblox. I'm sorry. I can't handle cubes. I can handle squares, but not cubes. Cubes too much. It's the best. I'll take your word for it. We're gonna be reacting to all of the Hollow Knight lore because I finished doing some Hollow Knights. I've done a few runs. We did one. We did a randomizer. That's all on my channel. And today I promised you guys when my VTube rig was done, I would feel better about reacting to a lore video. Cause you know, like small YouTuber over here with 10 million views. I don't want to steal content, you know. That's a crazy amount of views. My goodness. Yeah, don't want to steal. So we're gonna react. So what do I know about Hollow Knight lore? Here's my understanding of Hollow Knight, having played it once. Well, I guess 3 times. 3 times, but they were randomizers, so like, does that count, right? Or is this holding up the vertical stream? It's about bugs, yes. Hollow Knight is a video game about bugs. You're a little dude. You're like a vessel. Because there was like this pale king who used to be a worm. And then he shed off his little worm bod and became a little fork. A little fork guy, right? And so this fork dad, there was like this infection or something, and it was a moth. I'm blinking so much. This moth infection, and so they had to stop that because it was bad or something. And so they made a bunch of vessels, and they made them in the abyss. They being Fork Dad, and I think the Queen, and they used Void or something, and they made like a whole bunch, of little guys, and the knight was like climbing the tower, climbing to get out of the abyss, and he sees his bro, the Hollow Knight, being taken out because he's like the pure vessel or something. And they're like, we gotta seal this thing forever now. We're done with you. And they use the Hollow Knight to seal away Radiance, and then nothing bad happens. Yeah, there's also mom. There's a mom who's got bug milk. I think she's Hornet's mom. I think chat spoiled that for me. Though I kind of learned it because we found Hornet in one of our randomizers. She was just chilling with mommy bug milk. Hello, Joshua. You're saying hi a lot. So we're gonna find out the lore. I'm scared, guys. Also, you guys need to let me know how the volume is on this. Make sure. I want to be able to see my VTube model. So. No, don't snap. Bones' volume's too loud, but if we completely mute Bones, then it's not really a reaction. You can just leave and watch. There is a easy way to watch this without Bones. You can mute me by just going to Mossbag's channel and watching the video. Yeah, so guys, I need to look at the. I could pop out the audio mixer so I can actually see it. That's a good idea. Sorry, I need like a second monitor that is like in a reasonable position. Because right now, second monitor is behind me, and that will not do. Okay, so that's... Okay, we have all of the volumes. Can look at them all. Laptop's about to die. Oh, hi, Lucia. Oh my goodness. See you in a second. I'm scared. I don't know. Okay, I'm scared to learn. Grumpy. We really do need Grumpy Bones. But I don't have emotions right now. I'm a blank slate. Okay, I'm gonna press play, guys. And we're gonna look at the volume. Oh wait, this is what's that? Guys, I can't read. I guess that's big enough for me to read.
If you were to ask me, what is your favorite video game ever made?
Okay, what's your opinion, guys, on this volume situation? Yeah, I'm emotionless. How's the volume? Before I continue. Was that good volume, or what do we think? Man, I wish I had snacks, but I don't really want to eat into the mic. I'm waiting for your guys' opinion on the volume of what I just played, because I don't want to watch it. No ASMR. I won't be doing ASMR. Sorry, I was texting. Guys, I want to make sure you guys... Did you guys hear the other man talking? I'm going to work on an animation. Guys, is the video volume good? No, I was distracted. Yes, I heard. Okay, what's your opinion on the vocals? Is it good? We're judging Orzori. Yes, we can hear it, Bones. Okay, I just don't
I
want
would
it
have to say Cory in the House for the
I
Nintendo
got
DS.
startled.
But Hollow Knight would be a close second. Hollow Knight was
Oh my
released
God,
on
this is so
February
loud.
24th, 2017 by Team Cherry,
What?
an indie game studio based...
I'm sorry. What is Cory in the House? I know it's a meme, but I've never actually interacted with Cory in the House. Sorry, let me grab water. It's an American show, right? I know it's a meme. I know everyone loves it as a meme. I don't know if they like genuinely like it. I just never watched any. If a show didn't have cartoons as a child, I was like, I'm not having this. And then as an adult, I kind of feel the same way, honestly. Anyway, sorry. This is irrelevant.
Based in the mythical land of Adelaide, South Australia. Over the past 3 years, Hollow Knight has become an indie darling. The game has sold over 3.5 million copies. It was the opening game at ADGQ 2019.
That was like...
There's a Hollow Knight.
This video, how old is this video? It's like multiple years old, and it sold 3 million. Bones, you continue yapping. I'm gonna feed my cats. No worries. Wait. What's this book?
Book, a line of plushie.
Wait. What's the book? Guys, is there a book? Also, the plushies look all right. What kind of book? Is it like an art book? I have the Hornet plushies. And the knight. Why don't you have the worm? Not a real fan, I see. Watch more anime? Aye. Also, hello.
T-shirts, nicotine patches, nuclear warheads, and even vinyl records for all you goddamn hipsters. Team Cherry had one goal when making Hollow Knight. They wanted to create a world that allowed players to get complete...
I know this is the preamble, but... Man, I think I have a record player. I was one of those hipsters, but like I just got water damage on all of my records and they don't work. It was really sad. But not so sad that I care about it. I didn't have like anything good. Sorry.
Completely lost in exploration.
We're not even going to get to the lore. What are we doing?
Design. The levels in Hollow Knight are massive, with secrets and rewards hidden in every nook and cranny. Be that powerful charms.
Am I a deer with teeth? Yes, most deer have teeth. But I assume you're talking about my fangs. My pointy teeth. Yes. They're for impressing women. Just like my antlers, but their teeth. I'm very, very impressive. That's why I have a wife. Sorry. Sorry, I have a wife. Sorry, or is it's my wife?
Special abilities, or the game's navigation system requires the player to work for their map, forcing them to make a stronger mental image of the world in their head. Christopher Larkin's score and Ari Gibson's artwork lend to this as well, creating an atmosphere that the player won't want to leave. But there's one aspect of Hollow Knight that keeps people like me coming back: the world building.
The little bugs.
When Super Metroid launched in 1994, it stood out for its amazing...
This game is 31 years old. Because Ursula's 31. In 1994, yeah. 1994 mentions. Sorry. It's my birth year.
Sense of immersion. Now in 1994, I was busy not being alive. But I've watched enough YouTube...
Shut up. Don't all y'all do the same thing now. What the hell? Didn't realize y'all were old. Are you recording from retirement homes? Basically. I live in a city with a... Not a city. I live in a small town full of old people. We have a cheese museum. Old. So they're going to explain the concept of a Metroidvania, I'm assuming? I'm more of a Castlevania than a Metroid
YouTube video
guy.
essays to know that this game was a big deal.
I don't like space. That's why I didn't really like the
Super
Xbox
Metroid is
thingy.
basically the granddaddy of all Metroidvanias. That's why they're called Metroidvanias. Now in Super Metroid, there are moments that give the player a sense of depth. Basically the feeling that this world exists outside of Samus's interactions with it. In the room right before that diabetic crocodile thing, Samus can find the corpse of a random soldier. His inclusion here doesn't change the gameplay at all, but instead gives the player a sense of wonder about the world they are exploring. Who was this guy? Why was he here in the first place? Did he like jazz? Now, finding dead bodies and other random garbage is pretty cool, right? While
I
Hollow Knight
guess.
basically does the same thing, about a dozen times. Through its world building, Hollow Knight turns Hallownest into a living kingdom.
I can't believe the game only has a dozen pieces of lore and people make so many videos about it. Is that even possible? Less than 12 lore pieces? I thought it was more deep than that, I'll be real. 92 baby here. I'm with you, Bones. Hell yeah, my brother's from 92. That makes us old. I keep getting distracted by Dusty Doggo's doggo. It's a very good doggo.
You can sense the ancient history of the land when you look at dilapidated structures or giant barred doors. Nothing feels like it was put into the game randomly. There's a reason for it all. Except those reasons aren't the easiest to uncover. Hollow Knight's narrative is buried under layers of NPC dialogue, item descriptions, lore tablets, and even additional content like the Quarrel comic and Fan Gamers.
I read the
Wanderer's
Quarrel
Journal.
comic.
These past 3 years have
I read that. I read the Quarrel comic. I found it. I heard that Cobble Knight. Why can't I speak? I shouldn't stream. I literally cannot even speak. I read the Hollow Knight Quarrel comic. That's really hard to say, actually. Quarrel comic. I read it. I read it because it was neat. It's got good compositions.
Yes, my favorite game, Cobble Knight.
Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, and Cobble Knight. The third Knight game. If Hollow Knight is Metroidvania, Cobble Knight is Mega Man. Shovel Knight. Who is Mega Man? Oh, Strawberry Cobbler. Ooh. Gotta share with the class. Okay. You gotta make one and share with the class. I'm running on Dr. Pepper and drawing. That's substance. Roguelike where you kill everyone. It has to be like an old school, you know? It'd be more old school.
seen an insane amount of research by the Hollow Knight community to make sense of Team Cherry's sprawling world. We've even made it to the point where people are looking at the in-game signs to try and decipher Hallownest's logographic language. In this video, I hope to give you a long and detailed look into the world of Hollow Knight, exploring Hallownest's history and uncertain future. When I'm not busy making surprisingly accurate Super Smash Bros. Roster speculation videos, or insightful podcasts about beloved subjects like the Donkey Kong Country television series, or whatever this was supposed to be, I'm usually making videos about Hollow Knight. And while I am a seasoned...
Oh, if it's old-fashioned, how about a game centered around Bones' life? Why you do this to me? What have I done to deserve this treatment? I'm trying hard to focus on drawing, but I can't because I want to focus on lore. Don't worry, I'm gonna drag this out. I didn't. Okay, he mostly does Hollow Knight stuff. That makes sense. This is like one of those magnum opus YouTube videos, isn't it? I need one of those.
Hollow Knight lore expert, I cannot confirm that every musing or theory presented in this video is completely correct. I highly recommend checking out the lore section of the Hollow Knight wiki if you want a more neutral explanation of Hollow Knight's lore. But if you're too lazy to read, then I suggest you sit back, order some Domino's pizza, or just grab a block of cheese from the fridge and enjoy the mostly complete...
I do have cheese. I don't have Domino's. We went and got Firehouse subs today for Ursula's birthday. But, yeah. Anyways, that's not really relevant. I'm just scared. I'm scared to learn the lore. I feel like there's going to be a test. Actually, I'm cool with learning Hollow Knight lore. I'm scared of reading Zelda lore. I don't have the power to become a Zelda lore scholar. It scares me. My eyes just want to be closed. I don't know what that is.
Lore of Hollow Knight.
Oh, but we should grab a block of cheese, guys.
It's a simple fact of life that every human worships a god, be that technology, ideologies, or in rare cases, God. As it turns out, the bugs in Halnest pretty much operate in the same way. From the Mosskin born from the dream of
Like
a giant
American
slug,
gods.
to the emo kids of the ancient civilization who literally worship the darkness, there is no shortage of things to
Wait,
worship in the world of Hollow Knight.
Who? Emo?
Yeah, Zelda lore is as complex as Undertale and Deltarune lore, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I've always just felt like Zelda lore isn't supposed to make sense. Like, it feels like reading tea leaves a little bit, you know? Hi, godly gamer. We're learning lore. So there's Mosskin. They worship a slug. I feel like we're just a bunch of Mosskin. I'm eating drywall, very tasty, I must say. Joking, don't eat drywall. Well, don't eat the drywall, but crunch through it. Like, it's kind of like the peanut shell, and in the center you can find the asbestos. Now that's the good stuff. Slurp it up like noodles. Yummy, yummy asbestos.
Our story begins with a creature very much worthy of worship. A creature born from the carcass of a worm. The carcass
Me.
can still be found in the Kingdom's Edge, and it's our only good look at what worms actually looked like. At the time Hollow Knight occurs, it is suggested there are no worms left in the world. They were incredibly long creatures that featured little to no limbs. Another more mysterious property of worms was that they had some kind of prescience or foresight.
We knew about worms. We did learn about worm. We are aware. See, I'm correct in my lore understanding so far. Bugs are much like you guys. We worship the worm. Or my cat. My cat slays worms. She doesn't really worship them. My cat offers me worms constantly. My dog got worms. We're just a very worm positive stream. She doesn't like give me worms. Like she offers me dead worms as gifts. Like the little worm toys, not. My dog had a tapeworm. Tapeworms have a crazy life cycle. Do you guys want to learn about tapeworms after this? Pinworm go burr. Actually, I did have pinworms as a child. I did in fact get pinworms. But that's a story for another day.
Basically, they could see the future
Right, they
to
can see the
some
future.
capacity. It isn't clear how effective this ability was. Considering how the entire race went extinct, this foresight ability must have been pretty shit. Getting back to this particular worm carcass, it is explained that this worm traveled across the distant mountains and wastelands beyond Hallownest. Once it arrived in Hallownest, the worm died. Except not really. Inside the maw of the carcass sits a pale broken egg, out of which hatched a new form of worm, a being of meager shell.
Oh, that's the egg.
This form of the worm is usually referred to as the Pale King, and he's the character basically responsible for everything.
Is it strange that I'm afraid of deer? Boo. I get you. Sorry to scare you so greatly. I'll give you reason to fear me, okay? Hi, Kimiko. Okay, so it was like born, but it is like reincarnated / born thing, kind of? Ugh. Me when I die and the worms emerge. That's just me. And they could see the future. I say. What did we say about bullying, chat? I wasn't bullying. I was doing exposure therapy.
Thing that happens in Hollow Knight. The Pale King is a higher being, a type of creature that exists above all others.
Yeah, that's what it says on
His
the
body was
tablets.
said to shine with a radiant visage that harmed those who looked upon him. The ultimate
What?
goal of the Pale King seemed to be in line with that
Source?
of other worms. A line from the cryptic Mr. Mushroom reads, "Worms pull bugs into their thrall, till ages pass and kingdoms fall." In other words, it's just in their nature. Dogs wag their tails, cats bury their shit, and worms bring massive amounts of bugs into their service in order to form long-standing kingdoms and civilizations. And
Seems
here in a
legit.
far corner of the world, the Pale King emerged from the corpse of his former self and began to build his eternal kingdom, Hallownest. There's just one slight problem. There's like people already living there.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're gonna do king shit, aren't we? Okay. Is this real? Worms really do that? Yes. Yes, it is 100% true. Actually, that's more of like a... Wait. Actually, that is kind of true. Worms do bring bugs into their thrall. There is a type of bug known as the horseworm. And the horse hairworm, actually. And what it does is it infects a host bug, usually like a mantis, right? And then the worms grow up in the mantis, and then eventually the worms kind of control the mantis like a zombie, and they make it want to go to the water. So the worm brings the mantis into their thrall, and the mantis goes towards the water, and all of the worms emerge from its abdomen and go into the water to continue their life cycle. So worms do in fact bring bugs into their thrall. So a little science. I love parasites. They're so neat. Anyways, so they were saying, okay, so we've got our worm becomes a guy who's really shiny, and gonna start a kingdom, but there's people already living there. A body could be considered a kingdom. That's true. My body is a temple, not a whole kingdom.
The area that would eventually become Hallownest was
Oh,
already
that's such a
filled
pretty
with
map.
mantises,
What the hell? Who made this map?
Skug.
Hi, Skug. Okay, so mantises and bees. I kind of assumed that they weren't part of the kingdom. They're like still there, you know? Or spiders like a different
bees,
one?
moths, spiders,
Yeah.
mushrooms, and bush cosplayers. Each of these groups were already operating with their own cultures and societies, and each group had a different interaction with the Pale King. One of the more receptive groups to the arrival of the Pale King were the mushrooms of the fungal wastes. These creatures
They're
were
so
able to
cute.
communicate with one another through one shared mind. The mushrooms
Wait.
viewed this shared mind as a strength, and they were kind of smug dickheads about it.
Wait.
Ultimately, the mushrooms wearily accepted the Pale King's rule, viewing his foresight as a shield to the dangers of the future. Another
Wait. I've heard this before. Is there a large purple woman, perhaps? Or sorry, are you with me? What's with mushrooms and making hive minds? It's kind of crazy. Sorry, that's a deep cut. You have to read. You have to read. Oh God. Fountain Regret. There we go. That's it. BL, Big Lady. Yes. I'm now disappointed that Hollow Knight doesn't have a giant fungus woman.
group living in the fungal wastes is the Mantis tribe. The
Yeah.
Mantises have a rich cultural history reaching back to long before the birth of Hallownest. The Mantises are a proud tribe, believing in the importance of proving one's physical strength. The Mantises are fiercely territorial, but will show respect to those who display great power. These Fight Club enthusiasts were led by 4 powerful Mantis lords, who I guess just kind of sat around waiting for outsiders
Yeah, you guys
to
were
challenge
always
them.
you guys
The
were
Mantis
always
tribe-
saying that there's like the one throne broken. That was like the Traitor King, right? We'll probably get to that, I'm sure. I don't really understand what his deal was or her deal. Boy, girl. Yeah.
had no interest in the Pale King's kingdom, but the two communities did come to a truce. In exchange for their independence from Hallownest, the Mantis tribe kept the beasts of Deepnest from invading Hallownest. Not sure why they
Oh.
didn't just go out the other exits from Deepnest, but whatever. I'm not an expert on Border Patrol. I don't work at ICE anymore. Let's move on to Deepnest. Now, many of the different tribes of Hallownest were kind enough to leave lore tablets behind, detailing pretty much everything we need to know about them. Unfortunately, the bugs of
kind of fun.
Deepnest didn't do
Wait,
that.
how do you?
We know
wait.
that the spiders of Deep
There was like a shiny one. How do you get those ones to appear? Because I always found those, but like I couldn't read them. Like, is there? Oh, do you need to be wearing that like fungus thing, the fungus charm? Are you able to read them? Not ice mentioned right now. Yeah, that's not. Ooh, awkward. It's very awkward, to say the least. Okay, you had to be wearing the. Okay, that makes sense. You wear that. It's like some sort of fungal communication method.
Unfortunately, the bugs of Deepnest didn't do that. We know that the spiders of Deepnest had a monarchy because why not? Those are always good, right? Also, within Deepnest are a separate group of spiders that immigrated to Deepnest at some point in the past. This group was known as the Weavers, and they established their own culture and history within Deepnest. They
Wait,
used
there's
looms of
multiple
silk to weave
spiders?
stories, spells, and shields. One thing we know for sure about Deepnest is that they really didn't want anything to do with Hallownest. The struggles of Deepnest-Hallownest relations would become painfully clear as time goes on, but for right now, it seems like the two remained fairly isolated from one another. Another section of pre-Hallownest includes Greenpath. Now, as far as we can tell, the mushrooms, mantises, and spiders of Deepnest didn't worship any higher beings.
Sorry, my pause wasn't working. Wait, I missed all of that, but where's Oars? Oars is in the vertical chat. Okay, so wait, what happened? I missed all
Painfully clear as time goes on, but for right now, it seems like the two remained fairly isolated from one another. Another section of pre-Hallownest includes Greenpath. Now, as far as we can tell, the mushrooms, mantises, and spiders of Deepnest didn't worship any higher beings. There is this giant mushroom corpse in the fungal core, but I don't think this is a higher being. I mean, who the hell would want to worship a fat-ass mushroom? Fat-ass slugs? Now that's dope. The land we know as Greenpath was created by the
He's
higher
just a
being
really
known
big
as
boy.
Un. Un used her great mind to dream the vegetation of Greenpath into the once barren caverns. Un's followers, the Mosskin, were also born out of Un.
Wait, what did undo?
Un used her great mind to dream the vegetation of Greenpath into the once barren caverns.
What? How does one dream a what? We got Big Slug Lady. That's true. We got BSL. Big Slady. How does one dream a? Is it metaphor or like a thing? Are we talking like a metaphor? Dreams are power. That's what I was wondering. I was wondering if it was like metaphorically, like she dreamed it up and like got to work, or if it's like a magic thing. It's literal? Okay.
Un's followers, the Mosskin, were also born
Hello.
out of Un's dream, making her their creator. Greenpath at its height was actually much larger than we see in game. At one point, Greenpath stretched into both modern-day Queen's Garden and possibly Fog Canyon. Greenpath's citizens
makes sense. They
showed
have the same
themselves to
kind
be
of
a
vibe.
fairly developed society. They built a temple at the Lake of Un in order to worship her, and they even had their own line of defense, with Moss Knights showing proficiency in combat, using nails and shells as weapons.
Okay, I'm down. I'm worshipping Un.
The Law of Un continued
Hi,
to
Noob.
remain in effect even after the Pale King arrived, but it seems like they allowed the king to establish a road through their lands, leading travelers to the heart of Hallownest. Hence the name Greenpath. Yeah, Team Cherry really racked their brains when naming this area, didn't they? Next, we have the bees. And while
Not
there is no
the
lore on how these
bees.
bees can turn into fucking drills, or how they can ignore all known laws of aviation, we do know how they reacted to the Pale King. These bugs decided to seal their hive off from the rest of the world, with only patrol bees being able to enter and exit the hive. So yeah, the bees are pretty much pointless in this story. And finally we have the moth tribe. In-game, the only moth settlement is in the resting grounds, but the tribe might have also inhabited the Crystal Peak at one point. Now, as we all know, moths in real life are just complete assholes. As for the
Pardon
moths in
me?
Hollow Knight, well, it's a bit complicated.
Guys, what's your favorite moth? Actually what's kind of interesting is that moths are one of the few domestic insects. Because we have bees. Bees are a domestic honeybees, and then the silk moth. Silkworm. Isn't that neat? I hate moths. Wow. The Luna one, Luna moth. Luna moths are very good. I like the way you think. I like the Atlas moth. That guy's cool. I used to play a moth game. I had so many species. The one that looks like Rosy Maple. Rosy Maple's a really good moth too. I was a bit confused, so I have to go back again. Because I understand the bees. I'm just very confused.
Even after the Pale King arrived, but it seems like they allowed the king to establish a road through their lands, leading
Yeah.
travelers to the heart of Hallownest. Hence the name Green Path. Yeah, Team Cherry really racked their brains
Okay.
when naming this.
So they let there be a path. Okay, I
area,
see.
didn't they? Next,
Okay.
we have or how they can these
Okay.
bugs to exit the hive.
I get that
So
one.
yeah, the bees are pretty much pointless in this story. And finally, we have the moth tribe. In-game, the only moth settlement is in the resting grounds, but the tribe might have also inhabited the Crystal Peak at one point.
Apologies.
Now, as we all know, moths in real life are just complete assholes.
That's
As
a
for the
pretty
moths in
moth.
Hollow Knight, well, it's a bit complicated. The moth race is described as being a rather pacifist group, with few ever choosing to take up a weapon. During the Pale King's reign, the moth race delved amongst dreams and the dead, displaying the importance of remembering those.
They what? Delved amongst. Okay.
The moth race delved amongst dreams and the dead, displaying the importance of remembering those who have passed, as well as learning how to shape dreams themselves. Similar to the moths, those who
Sorry,
have passed.
this-
Moth race delved
is
amongst
dense.
dreams and the dead, displaying the importance of remembering those who have passed, as well as learning how to shape dreams themselves. Similar to the
Okay.
Mothkin, the Moth tribe was born from a higher being known as the Radiance.
Okay.
The Radiance is described as being a light in which the Moth tribe basked. So she was basically a giant lamp to them. Another important aspect about the Radiance is her ties to dreams and a substance known as essence.
Okay.
Essence are the remains of wishes and dreams, and are represented in-game by these Dreamcatcher particle effects. Essence can take the form of whispering roots, as well as dream ghosts, both of which are memories taking root in the world. The Radiance appears to be a creature made of essence, but she isn't the only higher being to give off essence.
Yeah. Okay. What? Dusty lore drop? As someone whose Sona is part moth, hey. Yeah, we're pro moth. I think the moths are cool. Radiance seems nice. Shiny. Bright lamp. I like that. So who else?
has green particles, the Pale King has gray particles, and this sexy character named Grim gives off fiery red particles. However, the Radiance
Who had
appears
the
to
green
me
ones?
as
Did-
green particles, but she isn't the only higher being to give off essence. Un has green particles, the Pale King has gray particles, and this sexy character named Grim gives off fiery red particles.
They all have their own
However, the Radiance
particles.
appears to be the main god when it comes to dreams, even if other gods also dabble in the dream realm. Getting back to the Moth tribe, it is their interaction with the Pale King that we need to discuss. Basically, the Moths turned their backs on the Radiance completely in order to worship the new light that had appeared, the Pale King's light.
Who did that? Was that the Husks? Who?
That we need to discuss. Basically, the moths turned their backs on the Radiants completely
The moths
in order
did,
to
not
worship the new
us.
light that
Okay.
had appeared, the Pale King's light. So yeah, moths are assholes in this game too. With her
Okay.
tribe forsaking her, the Radiants became a forgotten memory, a remnant of the past, and a thing that's definitely not going to come up again later in this video.
Okay, so the moths were like, Radiance, wow, I love this lamp. And then a new lamp showed up, and they were like, yay. And they went to that lamp. Okay, they switched lamps. Traders of the lamp. I got it. I got this. Moths are honestly so sweet. I take care of moths and butterflies that have broken wings. Aw, they're so sweet. I love moths.
And so
Except
the
when they're
Pale
in my
King's
house.
new kingdom was established, Hallownest. But there is one aspect of Hallownest that we need to discuss. Unfortunately, to better understand this, we're going to have to read some poetry. In Wilds
Yay.
Beyond they speak your name with reverence and regret. For none could tame our savage souls, yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch you taught, we changed. Base instincts were redeemed. A world you gave to bug and beast as they had never dreamed.
God,
This
that
is from a poem titled
third stanza a little rough. Does it? Is it? That one doesn't feel so. That one didn't feel as nice. Those other ones, those were bangers. Third stanza, little. Not didn't feel great on the ears as much.
Elegy for Hallownest, written by Motomon the teacher.
Yeah,
The
Monomon, you
poem
could
appears
have
at the
worked
beginning
that
of
one out
every
a bit.
playthrough, and hints at what the Pale King and his kingdom offered. Much of the land outside of Hallownest appears to be a wasteland, where bugs
Yeah.
survive off of instinct, without the burden of mind. Hallownest somehow taught these bugs and tamed their savagery. Basically, the Pale King changed the instincts of his subjects and granted them higher thought. To get a better picture of this, let's look at two different characters, Boone and Tuck. These adorable panda bug things
Yeah,
give
I
us a
love them.
clear display of Hallownest's effect. While both appear to be the same species of bug, Boone is dumb as a sack of rocks, struggling to string
Right.
together words, while Tuck speaks fairly clearly. The main difference between these two characters is that while Boone lives outside of Hallownest, Tuck lives beneath the city's capital. Basically, it appears as though Hallownest is a literal holy ground that raises the intelligence of those who dwell within. The Pale King established a path, starting from the kingdom's entrance in King's Pass, winding through Greenpath and the fungal wastes, and finally ending at the massive capital at Hallownest's heart.
What if Boone just speaks a different language? I have a moth plushie. That's cute. I'm obsessed with moths. In my comic, there's going to be a giant cat-sized silk moths. That's adorable. I want moths. Man, we're all going to become moth owners. Okay, so horizontal chat is very pro-moth. Vertical chat is for the moth haters. I see. I missed all of it again. I'm sorry.
Ground that raises the intelligence of those who dwell within. The Pale King established a path, starting from the kingdom's entrance in King's Pass, winding through Greenpath and the fungal wastes, and
Okay.
finally ending at the massive capital at Hallownest's heart. We now know
Okay.
the capital
I
city
see.
as the City of Tears, but that was likely not its original name. The rain that falls down onto the city from the blue lake above didn't begin until after the kingdom collapsed. So unless the capital was originally named by some edgy literature student, the name City of Tears wouldn't have made much sense. The king's motivation for all this appears to have been his desire to be worshipped. The citizens of Hallownest believe that the Pale King created the world, and everything in it. Shrines to the king can be found scattered throughout the kingdom, and king's idols were created and distributed to followers of the king. Despite the
Yeah.
worship, the Pale King often kept himself hidden from his subjects, possibly
Power to you to try and learn the lore. This is an entire rabbit hole I didn't want to open for a while. Well, we're having fun. I'm having a fun time. Silksong Wen, it's been 8 years. Bones to the stream watching. I don't think its release date got announced. From what I understand, it will be available when the thing launches, but it's not, because there's the Xbox handheld that's launching, and Silksong will be available day one on that, but it's launching before that. So it's sometime before Christmas confirmed. But no, like, specific date. Yeah, we're getting Silksong this year during holidays. Possibly. Because I think there was, like, a tweet from someone saying that it'll be available day one on the thing, but it'll be available before that thing. Before the Xbox thingy is available. Yeah. Okay, so they're worshipping the Pale King because they think he, like, created the world or something, and he, like, raises bugs up mentally with his shiny aura.
Simply to hide his blemishes. I mean, if you look at the size of the real Pale King to his statue in the ancient basin, the man is clearly overcompensating. The Pale King's White Palace was also built underneath the city, separating him from his subjects even more so. At the same time, certain powers became shunned in Hallownest, though we don't know for sure if the Pale King had anything to do with this. Lifeblood is a blue liquidy substance that leaves those who drink it feeling refreshed. However, the use of lifeblood was seen as a taboo, and those who used it were demonized as heretics. The use of soul for combat was also shunned. Soul is a sort of life force in Hollow Knight that animates the bodies of living creatures. But some characters are able to control the soul of others to conjure powerful spirits. But aside from a few exceptions, no citizens of Hallownest ever used this power. However, the Pale King didn't rule alone. There was another higher being in the mix.
Big
a
lady.
being known as the White Lady.
Silksong is going to be released anywhere before Christmas 2025. Exactly. Could be today or the next month. Yeah, exactly. And I don't imagine that the Xbox thing will come out, like, just at Christmas, because otherwise you can't buy it for Christmas. Just from, like, a when things get released standpoint, that doesn't make sense. So I feel like it's before November. Well, before the end of November. Feels right. For the system launch. Or maybe it will be in December, I don't know. Madoka Magica when? Never. I hope it's before GTA 6. Okay, so Big Lady.
The White Lady is a weird brute-like being that can be found in the modern-day Queen's Gardens. She is encased in a strange cocoon, and we know very little about her. With as much exposition we get for the Pale King, there is next to nothing on the White Lady. But one thing we do know is that she likes to breed.
Pretty.
Like, a lot. The White Lady would often retreat to the Queen's Gardens, an area of land once controlled by the Moss King.
I love trees. I think that's why I like deer, because they're just fun little ponies that have, like, trees growing out of their heads. I just love trees. I think trees are so neat. Books of Avo can attest to that. That book all about trees. And this lady is so Tree of Life coded. I love her. Minecraft 2 when? Tree Hugger confirmed. Yes. I like to munch the bark off of trees. How exactly she walked around
and actually went places is a lore question too deep for even my expertise. The White Lady is also known as a pale being, along with the Pale King. What exactly are pale beings? Well, we don't know for sure, but they seem to stand out even amongst higher beings, as being even more powerful. I know that's a little confusing, so let's try using an example. I'd say that regular higher beings are like a TP-Link Archer C7 AC1750 wireless dual-band gigabit router, while pale beings are like the Asus RT-AX88U AX6000 dual-band 8X gigabit Wi-Fi router.
No, my brain's breaking, guys.
Hallownest underwent a bit of an industrial revolution. He ordered the construction of the stagways, which were used
Wait,
to
who did?
transport Imperial Revolution.
My brain stopped.
Under the Pale King, Halnest underwent a bit of an industrial revolution.
Okay.
He ordered the construction of the stagways, which were used to transport passengers and goods. The Forgotten
Yeah.
Crossroads and the storerooms above the City of Tears were used to store goods that traveled along these stagways. The king
Damn.
also ordered the construction of the tramways, because literally no one is safe from the threat of automation. A tram was built between the Forgotten Crossroads and the resting grounds. A second tram was built from the kingdom's edge across the ancient basin over to Deep Nest. And then a third tram was started in Deep Nest and attempted to go further into Deep Nest. Not sure how useful that would have been to the bugs of Hallownest, but whatever. The Pale King's a smart guy, I'm not gonna question him. But anyway, the Pale King's super smart plan to build a tram in Deep Nest ended up getting a few of his tram workers killed. The bugs of Deep Nest rejected the Pale King's attempt to build a tram in their territory, further cementing the poor relations shared between the two groups. Aside from convenient fast travel, regular pathways were also used to cart goods around the kingdom. From this was born probably one of the most important groups in Hallownest, and perhaps even all of fiction. An elusive guild of bugs, simply known as the Menderbugs, took to
learned
maintain
only
the various signs scattered through.
He learned about these guys in the randomizer when when we were doing the enemy randomizer for a little bit, and all of these guys showed up. That was crazy.
throughout Hallownest. From the journal entry of one Menderbug, we can catch a glimpse into their ancient and unknowable minds.
Dear, dear diary, isn't life just the most beautiful thing? Fixing signs, mending posts, let them break, I say. I'm a better mender for all that repairing. I sometimes doubt there's a single bug in all of Hallownest happier than me.
Another
Guys, this is an example of imagining Sisyphus happy, you know? It's the perfect example of that. Mender is happy, exactly.
example of the Pale King's expanding infrastructure is the Crystal Peak. This area is filled with crystals that grow rapidly along walls, ceilings, and even the shells of certain
Crystals
bugs.
look so edible.
These crystals were considered valuable to the bugs of Hallownest, resulting in large-scale mining efforts. We don't actually see the crystals used anywhere else in Hallownest, but they are said to contain a sort of energy. The crystals are also said to sing, if you listen very carefully.
We're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so
In terms
That
of
caption's
military,
very good.
Hallownest's first line of defense appeared to be a group simply known as the Five Great Knights. The members of this esteemed coalition were Ogrim, Hagamol, Zamir, Drya, and Isma.
Oh, because when I was wondering if that was like special flavor dialogue or not. Is Ogrim who's Ogrim? It was
Ogrim,
yeah, okay, because I was wearing the Defender's crest, and she's like, "I'm blind, but I could tell you're Ogrim." So I was like, "Okay, okay."
Hagamol, Zamir, Drya, and Isma. For being so important, most of the information about these knights has been lost to time. Ogrim is the knight we know the most about, since he is one of the few knights still alive during the events of the game. Ogrim expressed a great amount of loyalty towards the king, and he maybe had something going on with Isma, but we really don't know. Hagamol was known for his sense of
get
humor
that.
and his soft-spoken voice, but at the same time, he was also dummy thick. Mysterious Samir arrived in Hallownest from a serene land, bringing with her a collection of delicate flowers. At some point, she also got into a relationship with a mantis, but not just any mantis, a daughter of one of the mantis lords. So yeah, it seems like these
Buggery.
great knights were slaying in more ways than one. All we really know about Drya is that she was fierce, caring, and wise. As for Isma, she was described as being kind. She also appears to be some sort of weird plant life form, but there's no information on where she's from or what her powers were. The five Great Knights played an important role in the Champion's Call, the Knotted Grove, and the Battle of the Blackworm.
What
We
are
have no
all
idea
those?
what these events were
Okay.
or how they affected Hallownest, but they sound cool nonetheless.
Yeah.
During Hallownest's reign, there was another strange area that seemed to exist separate from the Pale King's rule. Carved out of the corpse of an ancient bug, an area called the Colosseum of Fools was constructed, and it was a destination for warriors from outside Hallownest. The sole purpose for fighting in the Colosseum appeared to be simply for glory, with a mysterious figure known as the Lord Fool overseeing the combat. We don't know when the Colosseum was constructed or if the Pale King was involved.
I love that
but
little
one
dude.
of his servants, the Pale Lurker, became a champion in the Colosseum, perhaps
That's you.
indicating the Pale King's approval. And finally, there was the Royal Waterways, where the fecal excrement of the kingdom was washed out into the fungal wastes. This area saw the rise of a
Do you know what? Oh no, what's it called, guys? Oh, what's bug poop called? Frass. Frass. Yeah, it would be the frass, the kingdom frass. That's what bug poop is called. I know that because termite frass is what you're looking for. If it's like the first sign of termites, as you see their poop in the coming out the walls. All I know is gross bug facts. I'm sorry.
species of parasite-like creatures called the flukes. The flukes spawned from the fluke marm, a giant monster with cavities in which tinier
Don't call her a
flukes live.
monster.
There really isn't too much lore involved with the flukes, but I do need to point out that the fluke marm is canonically a MILF. Like, that's not even debatable. The sky is blue, 2 + 2 = 4, and we all want to fuck this thing. And so this was the kingdom of Hallownest at its height. Hallownest was a vast kingdom connected by a network of stagways and tram stations.
Okay.
The bugs of Hallownest mourned their dead on the resting grounds, engaged in commerce using Geo, the de facto currency of the region, and a thriving capital located in the middle of the kingdom. The Pale King had succeeded in crafting a full-blown society, but we all know there are pitfalls to living in a society. As a suspiciously knowledgeable hunter points out in his journal, the Pale King had created a population of weak and pathetic creatures. The bugs of Hallownest did not hunt for their own food, and had become complacent with their comfort.
Is that... This isn't gonna end well. So I did a vid on that. That Arizona home that a day after collapsing, the home was filled to the brim with frass. Yeah. It's nasty. That's what you gotta look for, though. How did I ask for dad jokes but I immediately forgot? Mommy, sorry. Mommy, sorry. No, that's not Milk Mama. That's not that. She's not milky enough, okay? She's not my Milky Mama. She's a MILF. She's a big lady, a BL, as we call them, but...
This is
Hashtag
even
not
more
my girl.
obvious with the east wing of the capital. These greedy members of Hallownest's
love these
high
little bugs.
society became complete cowards, obsessed with riches and plumbed
What?
from
Who's he?
excess wealth.
Did I
The
find
bugs
that?
living in Hallownest Prime looked quite different than the instinctive simpletons they once were. Their savagery had been replaced with intelligence, and through that intellect, they gave the Pale King the devotion and service he desired. And while there were a few snags along the way, they were shining times for the king and his subjects. Resting at the threshold of Hallownest is a strange lore tablet, proclaiming Hallownest to be the last and only civilization. It calls Hallownest an eternal kingdom. This appears to have been the Pale King's goal, for Hallownest to stand against a wasted world as a final beacon for civilization. And that was the Pale King's ultimate folly, to think that he could succeed where so many others had failed before. Long before the Pale Kings or the Barry Bensons of the world, the land of Hallownest was controlled by an ancient caste. Hints of Hallownest history are littered throughout the land, with the most notable examples being the soul totems and arcane eggs. One sect of these ancient bugs
Oh
didn't
yeah,
worship a god.
because they looked at the eggs and they talked about like the ancient kingdom, right? Hello, welcome to the stream. I'm hungry. I'm gonna grab some food. You do that. Get your snacks. We're almost halfway.
God like the Pale King or any lord, but instead a dark and mysterious substance known as the Void.
Okay, void
This
worship
ancient
first.
caste once also tried to lay claim to the entire land of Halonest, but they too failed. In his quest to conquer all of Halonest, the Pale King had made an enemy long forgotten, an enemy that was about to be remembered.
Uh-oh.
I mentioned earlier that the Moth tribe entirely forgot about the Radiants in order to worship the Pale King, but that isn't quite true.
Uh-oh.
Memories of her still lingered, and hushed whispers of faith kept the Radiants alive. At the summit of the Crystal Peak, a location known as Halonest Crown, a strange collection of glyphs can be found.
Yeah.
Joining these glyphs is a statue of the Radiants, presiding over the kingdom below. This old summit is the sole standing shrine left to the Radiants. This was built in order to keep the memory of the Radiants alive. The Radiants' light began to appear in the dreams of Halonest citizens. This light manifested itself in an infection that ravaged through the kingdom's tunnels. Those infected would fall into a deep sleep and awaken with broken minds. Some of the lesser bugs tried to resist the Radiants' light, which only resulted in them being consumed by it even more so. Many infected bugs lost their wills and began attacking bugs that weren't infected. The infection also twisted the bodies of its hosts, causing them to bloat and occasionally develop orange cysts on their bodies.
Right.
For many victims, they were reverted back to their basic instincts, carrying out the duties they once fulfilled in
We know
life,
all this.
but now as mindless slaves. Those caught up in the infection were linked into the Radiance's hive mind, allowing her to control.
Wait. Is that thing that we found? Can you find it like alive earlier? Did I just like start things way too early? Cultist? Because I remember this thing and it was all like all of its little guys were like pulsating and stuff. But I guess I just didn't find it. Stinky black stinky liquid. Well, we're a fan of Stinky. It dies once the first dreamer is yoinked. Okay, I see. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Their bodies if needed. As the infection spread across Halonest, many groups looked to solutions to fight off the Radiance's light. The gates to the City of Tears were closed in an attempt to keep the infection from reaching the city. The stagways were also shut down at some point, and many of the stags eventually died out, but some took more proactive efforts against the infection. The scholars of the Soul Sanctum decided to harness the power of Soul in an attempt to fight the infection.
Okay, so that's what
This
they were
resulted
doing.
in the deaths of hundreds of bugs, whose souls were sucked out and injected into the bodies of the scholars. Their goal was to achieve some kind of pure focus, which would somehow protect them from plagues of the mind. The scholars' leader, the Soul Master, was driven
Catboy.
mad by the sheer power of Soul, and his entire sect failed to avoid infection. But hey, at least they took as many innocent people down with them as they could.
That's
The
the
Mantis
spirit.
tribe, showing a stronger will than the common bug, were able to stave off the infection. However, one of the 4 Mantis Lords turned against his sisters. He and his followers took in the infection willingly, as it gave them more strength and courage. At some point during all this, the
What?
Traitor Lord and his followers were exiled from the Mantis village, eventually taking up residence in the Queen's Gardens. The Traitor Lord's daughter ended up dying at some point. This is the same Mantis that was in a relationship with Zamir, one of the 5 Great Knights, but the Mantises rejected their union because of Zamir's outsideness. As a gamer, this type of prejudice is all too familiar, and honestly, it makes me sick. With the 5 Great Knights
Okay, so that's all stuff we knew. But like, okay, the mantises were just they were just built different. Like, they infection showed up and they were just like, nah, And then a few of them got, then all the traders got to be like, yeah. I see. I joined at a good part. Yeah. Cat boy. I thought you said car boy. Okay. Okay, and then the soul dude, that makes sense. That he was freaked out about the whole, like, infection and everyone dying and shit. Well, not dying, but you know what I mean. Okay. It's all making sense. It's clicking.
Completely useless to fight against the infection, the Pale King devised his own scheme. A scheme involving a strange substance known as Void.
Oh,
As I
scheme
mentioned
time.
earlier, the Pale King's White Palace was built in an area called the Ancient Basin,
Oh, this
but his castle
music
wasn't
hits.
the only noteworthy thing down there. At the bottom of the Ancient Basin was the entrance to a pit known as the Abyss. Within the Abyss was a lake composed of void. The Pale King realized that this void could be given form, as evidenced by an imprint of such deep within the Abyss, possibly left there by the ancient civilization that predated Hallownest. The Pale
Right.
King devised a workshop in his palace, where he placed void in armor shells imbued with soul, creating servants known as King's Molds and Wing Molds.
Okay, so that's what they are. They're little void beings. Oh, you can see them. Where is this? Where can you find this little section that's being shown? No, we love scheming. I get the scheme now. Okay, that makes a lot of
These
sense.
void creatures were somehow imprinted with the desire of the Pale King, so that they would serve him. It isn't clear when the Pale King started making these creatures. There is evidence to imply that even common bugs were aware of King's Molds. But the point is, the Pale King turned to the void in order to create another creature.
It's a hidden area in the White Palace. Okay. Oh wait, we're about to.
But the point is, the Pale King turned to the void in order to create another creature, one that he believed could contain the Radiance and her infection. He tried to create a pure vessel. The Radiance's infection
Right.
needs its host to have a will and a mind in order to enslave it. A pure vessel would be
Oh, okay, that makes sense. No will to break. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'm with the Pale King here. I get
a
it.
creature made of void, designed to lack those features. The Pale King believed that by harnessing the void inside a pure vessel, he would be able to stop the infection and keep Hallownest lasting eternal. But his method for creating this so-called pure vessel was incredibly cruel. This is where the White Lady and her King Kong-sized libido come into play. These two higher beings engaged in a union of some kind, resulting in the creation of several eggs that were dropped down into the abyss. There, the void seeped into these eggs, corrupting the offspring of the Pale King and the White Lady. This act resulted
Okay.
in the creation of the vessel.
I'm sorry, there's just so many little guys. Look at them all. Rise up. They're just so little and cute. I just love them. Why save anyone when you can kill everyone? Listen. I'm still with the Pale King on this. This is like a better plan than the Soul Master. Don't.
The vessels are not technically
Let me
considered to be
know.
alive. They are shells created from the Pale King and White Lady that have been filled with the void. Within each vessel is a shade, a completely void being hidden behind the face of the vessel. Vessels are also non-gendered, I guess because they're dead or something. I'm not sure if that's how that works, but whatever. I'm not an expert on these kinds of things. I don't work at ICE anymore. Thousands of vessels were created during this process, but only one was chosen as the pure vessel.
Look at
This
him.
particular vessel, chosen by the
Sorry,
Pale
look
King,
at it.
was deemed the Hollow Knight, and was taken away to the White Palace. But I want to take a bit of a closer look at this
So
part of
wait. So they made a bunch of babies, and the babies are the vessels, but the shades, the stuff that is inside. They like got scooped, right? They're like pre-scooped babies that got filled with shadow gloop. Does that make sense? I wish I was scooped. Snuffles, truffle, shuffle. To the scooping room? Okay.
of the story. There are a number of questions and theories surrounding this moment that I really want to dig into. The big question surrounding this moment is, why was the Hollow Knight chosen over any other vessel? One common
just the
theory is that the
cutest.
Pale King took these vessels back to the White Palace and evaluated them using his giant collection of buzzsaws. This theory is probably the least likely explanation. It kinda exists just to explain the buzzsaws, which is quite the mystery, I'll admit, but doesn't really mesh with the vessels very well. How does being good at Super Meat Boy prove that you are a worthy vessel? And while thinking about logistics in a game about magic bugs is never a good idea,
Why two separate streams? It's just because one's vertical and then I have a horizontal one. Vertical just gets better discovery. People just find it on their feeds, so it does well. And then horizontal is just a better watch usually. Horizontal's where the real ones hang.
how exactly did the Pale King transfer these thousands of vessels to his palace without characters like the Dung Defender finding out? So this means that the Pale King probably made his decision without taking any of the vessels out of the Abyss. So how did the Pale King make his evaluation? I think the best explanation comes from a theory I originally heard from a user named Golden
damn.
Flower Fan. Basically, the vessels were hatched down at the bottom of the Abyss, and the first one to make it to the top was chosen by the Pale King. In a memory of this event, we see vessels falling from above back down into the pit of the Abyss. Perhaps these vessels weren't being cast down into the Abyss, but fell while trying to escape out of it. The lore tablet outside the Abyss appears to support this theory. It reads, "Our pure vessel has ascended. Beyond lies only the refuse and regret of its creation. We shall enter that place no longer." This tablet was likely written right after the Hollow Knight was chosen, considering that is when the entrance to the Abyss was sealed off. The tablet proclaims that the pure vessel has ascended, or in other words, climbed out of the Abyss. And while cut content should never be considered canon, I would just like to point out that an earlier version of this tablet, found in the game's code, was even more explicit about this. It read, "From below, our pure vessel has ascended." But how does making it to the top of the Abyss first prove that the Hollow Knight is somehow a perfectly hollow vessel? Well, I think this whole concept might just be a misconception. What if the Hollow Knight wasn't any different from the other vessels? All the vessels were made in the exact same way after all. The idea that the Hollow Knight was somehow more hollow than the other vessels comes from the fact that there were
The
so many
hollowest
vessels
knight.
created in the first place. If they only needed one, then why create so goddamn many? I mean, this is like
They're so
Aquamom on
cute.
steroids. Well, these are bugs we're talking about, so it would make sense that multiple offspring would come from one egg. And it might have been a precaution to produce multiple vessels in hopes that at least one would be able to successfully escape the Abyss. Now another explanation could be that the Pale King just yeeted other vessels that made it to the top first, after determining that they weren't hollow, which would better explain why so many were created. Ultimately, the exact details aren't super important, but I do find it
Yeah.
interesting how many different interpretations can be pulled from this part of the lore. After the Hollow Knight was chosen, the Pale King sealed the doorway to the Abyss, leaving the discarded vessels to rot away in darkness. These actions
Hello, Nish. Okay. So we don't know. All we know is our little best boy, the Hollow Knight, got taken. Maybe he just liked him. Maybe he just liked him.
Is Scug enabled?
Yeah, Skug's enabled.
were not taken lightly by the Pale King or the White Lady. Both participants expressed shame in what they did, but saw no other option to save the kingdom. But the vessels weren't the only poor saps sealed away in the abyss. There's also a lighthouse that was built on top of a naturally formed spire, its
Yeah.
light shining down on an ocean of abyss below. Inside was one of the Pale King's royal retainers, who was left in charge of keeping the lighthouse turned on. So this brave soul was willingly sealed in a dark and dangerous tomb for the rest of his life, just so he could not pull a lever. Well, at least he was living with purpose. With the abyss sealed and the Hollow Knight chosen, the Pale King's plan was beginning to come together. The Hollow Knight was raised and trained to prime form, causing it to grow several
Become
times
big.
its original size. We don't know exactly why this happened, but I guess the Hollow Knight is just a grower and not a shower.
He
We
grew
know that the
up.
Hollow Knight was trained to use a nail, but why
He just grew up big. I know they're probably all the same age, but he grew up. Okay, everyone who climb up first will be my son. Other will get thrown away. Listen, maybe it's just like in vitro. Sometimes you have too many eggs. Now I have a headcanon that Nish watches live streams.
why was this even necessary? One possible explanation is that the Hollow Knight needed to protect itself in case an intruder tried to kill it. You know, like the player. Or perhaps this was important in the process of containing the Radiance. Unfortunately, the details of that are never fully explained. The Hollow Knight might have somehow focused the Radiance inside itself, but Team Cherry gives us no explanation of how that might have worked. But that's still
Listen, as a writer, yeah, I get that. Sometimes you're just like, why did that happen? I don't know, looks cool. Looks cooler. Can you can you imagine? Can you imagine you're fighting Hollow Knight at the end and he's just a tiny little guy like you? Adorable. Super adorable. Wait.
wasn't enough
Keep
for
that.
the Pale King. Additional seals were needed in order to protect the Hollow Knight's physical body while the Radiance was trapped inside of it. To achieve this,
Father,
the Pale King sought the help
is
of
Mother
three
well?
particular
I demand answers and also Artificer. Kidding.
You say kidding so much. Stop.
I know you were just born but do platforming to live.
Platform. Man, I just like dads. I'm just a dad fan is my problem. So I see Pale King and I just imagine an AU where he and his 11,000 sons slash daughters, his 11,000 NB children are playing video games and they're all in a line, right? And they all need help with their game and he has to beat one level for each of them because they're all stuck. Is saying it bad? It's just you ask every day and then you say just kidding, and I don't think you're kidding entirely is all.
Thank has to have a mind since it trapped the Radiance in its dream realm, aka, a dream realm made by the Hollow Knight. In other words, he has a mind to think, a will to break, no voice to cry.
The Hollow Knight has to have a mind since it trapped the Radiance in its dream realm, aka a dream realm made by the Hollow Knight. Thank you, Nish. Beat this Mario level or you're disowned. Kaizo Mario time.
bugs, who would later be known as the Dreamers.
Anyways, Dreamers.
Lurien the Watcher, Motomon the Teacher, and Hera the Beast. Lurien is definitely the most mysterious of the three Dreamers. He lived in the Watcher's Spire in the City of Tears. From there, Lurien watched over the city with his telescope. Lurien was a pretty big fan of the king, so it probably took little convincing for him to lie down for him. Lurien might also be tied to another strange incident that occurred in the City of Tears. Hidden on some of Lurien's lore tablets are images of jars, the same jars that can be found stockpiled in the Tower of Love. This building sits on the outskirts of the city, and is the setting of one of the most bizarre bosses in the game, the Collector. The Collector is a void construct that appears to have been made from the same mold used to create the King's molds. But the Collector is unique because, well,
Good grief, he's naked!
The Collector stayed in the Tower of Love with a noble bug who likely owned the establishment. In the tower, a number of bugs can be found captured in jars, implying that these two were tasked with collecting these creatures. However, the Collector somehow became obsessed with grubs, creating a map to keep track of grubs it captured in jars, as well as keeping a strange shrine displaying a grub in the style of
What is this? The kidnappers? They were roommates? That's true. They do have they were roommates energy. Pale King fanboy?
the Vitruvian Man. Eventually, the bug staying with the Collector decided to lock it inside the Tower of Love, and fled to the Queen's Gardens, where it died. Likely due to overexposure of love, and fled to the Queen, the bug displaying track of grubs it captured in jars, as well as keeping a strange shrine displaying a grub in the style of the Vitruvian Man.
Behold
Eventually,
the Vitruvine
the
grub.
bug staying with the Collector decided to lock it inside the Tower of Love, and fled to the Queen's Gardens, where it died, likely due to overexposure to the void.
Yeah, it's
Despite
Iser.
being locked up in the tower, the Collector is still spotted by the hunter.
God, my brain is struggling with this. So the Collector is like a little void creature that's naked, and he lived in a tower where they collected bugs for some reason. Character is it's so adorable. Which character?
At some
Okay.
point, which either means this only happened recently, or the hunter has been farting around in Hallownest for a long ass time.
You?
We
Oh,
have
thank
no
you.
idea what these creatures were trying to do. It's implied that the Collector was trying to preserve the creatures
Okay, we
of
didn't really
Hallownest,
know.
perhaps trying to protect them from the spread of the infection, but we don't know where the Collector's obsession with grubs originated. And while
They're
Lurien does seem
adorable.
connected to all of this, we don't know how involved he was with this operation, or what its end goal exactly was. Motomon the Teacher lived in the Teacher's Archives, a library built atop a lake of acid in the Fog Canyon. The lower half of her body
She's
consists
so
of tentacles,
pretty.
making her a popular subject for the thriving Hollow Knight R34 community.
No.
Your Honor, the Collector is a goober, so I ask you to excuse his insanity and slight genocide.
I just think she's pretty. I think she's neat, okay? Collector gotta catch them all.
She's so pretty R34.
The archives and the Fog Canyon as a whole are also filled with these strange Metroid knockoffs. These creatures are likely related to Monomon in some way. They could be her live offspring, her test tube babies, or possibly even her shit. Motomon uses futuristic cathode
joke.
ray tube things to store information about Hallownest. Several terminals in the Teacher's Archive go into detail about the Pale King's plan to defeat the Radiants, indicating that Motomon had intimate knowledge of what she was taking part in. Finally, the Pale King sought the help of Hera
Okay.
the Beast, the Queen of Deepnest. Now, as I mentioned earlier, relations between Hallownest and Deepnest
Okay. This is my woman. I think Monomon's pretty, but well, I guess I slurped her milk too. I don't. Why do I bring it back to that? It's this is
Know
my
that my-
first woman, okay? You say poop joke, I laugh. Yeah, this is the mommy's.
were kinda not great. Unlike
Wait,
the
what
other
was
two
it?
Queen of Deep Nest. Now, as I mentioned earlier, relations between Hallownest and Deep Nest were kinda not great. Unlike the other two dreamers, Hera needed to be convinced in order to help the Pale King. Hera would eventually agree to become a dreamer
What about
in
Mother?
exchange for a child. The Pale King agreed, and the two engaged in a dalliance, which is a fancy way of saying they totally boned. The White Lady was okay with this arrangement. In fact, she might have been watching from the closet. The motive behind Hera's
Sorry,
request is
the mic.
never
I hit the mic. Okay. So she just wanted a baby with the king. Okay. I get it. So that's
elaborated
Hornet,
on.
right?
But it appears as though the King of Deep
Yes.
Nest was dead at this point.
A very cute
Hera
baby.
was a common bug, so perhaps she desired the Pale King's pale seed so that her child could be of high birth. The bargain between Hera and the Pale King resulted in the birth of Hornet.
Yeah.
She became known as the gendered child, because unlike the Pale King's other children, Hornet was not hollowed out by the Abyss. Hera and Hornet spent little
Shotter
time
the Scud
together.
can say Yowie and Yuri.
So to be genderless is to be hollowed. Got it.
Looks
Like
are
you,
forks.
Skug. Looks are forks. Shaw.
As Hera had to make good on her end of the bargain. And so the three dreamers were put to rest. Through their actions, a seal was placed over the black egg, prohibiting entrance into the chamber. These dreamers also had their own protection. At the base of Lurien's spire, the Watcher Knights guarded access to their master's body. Motomon's body was protected by a giant jellyfish named Umu. On top of this, Motomon entrusted her servant Quirrell with a mask.
Were you here when we were talking to Ursula about how she's stuck at Hollow Knight because she can't beat Umu? And I... Oh, my poor wife. Yeah, she's stuck at Umu. And I was like, Umu, really? Umu is not that hard, right?
My boy Quirrell.
Oh, there's Quirrell. I'm kind of confused by Quirrell, so I should pay really focused attention.
which would be required to break an additional seal she had placed over herself.
Yumulyu
So she
is the
basically
hardest
is
boss.
double wrapping herself. As for Hera, we're not really sure what. So she basically would be.
So wait, what's
On
this?
top of this, Motomon entrusted her servant Quirrell with a mask which
First
would
of
be
all,
required to
Jimmy
break an
Neutron
additional
reference
seal
at the bit with
she had
all
placed
kids.
over herself.
Secondly,
So she
how she
basically is
stuck at
double wrapping.
Yumulyu.
Wait, guys. I gotta focus. I know we learned the speak command.
On top of this, Motomon entrusted her servant Quirrell with a mask which would be required to break an additional seal she had placed over herself. So she
Okay.
basically is double wrapping herself. As for Hera, we're not really sure what protected her, since it is never actually seen in-game. We don't know where this creature is hiding, but whoever
Oh god,
it is,
my vacuum scared me. Guy, no, guy. Oh god.
LOL.
Stop. Sorry, my soul left my body. Vacuum attacked. Yeah, my vacuum is like... I can't find the remote control, and that's what I need to change its schedule. Vacuums scare dogs and deer. It's true. You're too cute and adorable, your character. I love this model. It's so cute. My wife made it.
they really suck at their job. Now there appears to be one more element to the Pale King's plan, involving the Weavers. Hidden away in the Weaver's den is an
Wait, I'm
incomplete
a little lost
shelf.
again.
As for Hera, we're not really sure what protected her, since it is never actually seen
Yeah.
in-game. We don't know where this creature is hiding, but whoever it is, they really suck at their job.
True.
Now there appears to be one more element to the Pale King's plan, involving the Weavers. Hidden away in the Weaver's den is an incomplete seal of binding, woven from silk. This design prominently features the Hollow Knight's head, and can be found in the White Palace, as well as blocking the exit during the Hollow Knight fight. Silk spools created by the Weavers can be found in the Stag Station in Deep Nest, as well as the Stag Station next to the White Palace.
Right.
These spools can also be found in the Pale King's workshop. We know that the Weavers were closely tied to Hera and Hornet, so their actions might have been a part of the deal between the Pale King and Hera. Once the Hollow Knight was ready, the Radiance was somehow channeled into the vessel, which was then placed inside of a giant black egg located in the Forgotten Crossroads.
Yeah.
This egg was built to sustain the Hollow Knight, and itself appears to be fashioned from void. The Hollow Knight was chained up, and the entrance to the black egg was locked behind a powerful seal created by the three Dreamers. Initially, this convoluted plan actually worked, and the infection was successfully contained. Memorials to the Hollow Knight and the Dreamers were erected in the City of Tears and the Resting Grounds. But this is the part of the story where
but
things
it ends. And then they
Egg.
sealed it away. The end. Egg. Okay. Story is gonna get a little bit hazy. Oh no.
get a little bit
We love
hazy.
eggs.
By the time these statues were constructed, citizens had taken to writing on parchment woven from spider silk, which was all destroyed when water started pouring down onto the city. We don't know how
Right.
long the Hollow Knight was able to completely contain the infection. Bugs from Dirtmouth used to go to the Temple of the Black Egg to pray, saying they felt at peace within the walls. But after a while, they stopped going, perhaps indicating that the infection was beginning to leak out again.
Uh-oh.
The infectious air continued to seep through Halnest for years, eventually even reaching the deepest parts of the kingdom. As it
Hey,
turns
Bambe.
out, the Pale King's pure vessel wasn't quite so pure after all. The
Hello.
Hollow Knight had been tarnished by an idea instilled. While the game never explicitly tells us what that idea was, it does hint strongly at what it might be. Hidden away in the White Palace is a memory showing the Hollow
So,
does hint
wait.
instilled. It's so pure after all. The Hollow Knight had been tarnished by an idea instilled. While the game never explicitly tells us what
The
that
flute
idea
marm
was,
KS
it
described
does
as alluring, making it canonical that she schmexy, only fact in Hollow Knight used by freaks.
Yeah, we already heard that fact. Okay, we got focus, guys. I might have to turn the cooldown up, just because we're learning.
does hint strongly at what it might be. Hidden away in the White Palace is a memory showing the Hollow Knight and the Pale King sharing a moment.
Where is
The
it
Hollow Knight
hidden?
might have developed a parental bond to the Pale King. And who could blame it? The Pale King is a pretty great dad after all. You know, if you ignore the infanticide and everything.
Yeah.
Remember those smug mushroom dickheads? Well, it turns out their trust in the Pale King was a complete mistake. That shared mind isn't looking too good now, is it? In the fungal core,
They
the
are very
corpse of a giant
mushroom-shaped.
mushroom lies dormant. Its final thoughts were, "Pale worm, what good to see a demise unavoidable?" This could imply that the Pale King always knew that his kingdom was doomed. All he could do was delay the inevitable. This is likely the moment when Halnest, as it once was, entirely
We love
collapsed.
noodles.
The Hollow Knight had not completely stopped the infection, and while it may have taken a while, Halnest was eventually brought low. It's at this point that characters and areas begin to resemble as we know them in-game.
Yeah.
When it became clear that the Hollow Knight was not able to contain the Radiance, the Pale King resorted to his final plan. He fucked off, hiding himself, his White Palace, and his Pale Court in the Dream World. At this point, all of the furniture in the palace was covered under white sheets, similar to how people in the real world cover their furniture while away on long trips. The palace was also completely covered with thorns and buzzsaws, similar to how people in the real world cover their houses with thorns and buzzsaws. The Pale King would eventually pass away while sitting on his throne in the White Palace.
I love my son. That's kind of you. Sorry. Oh, make sure to subscribe. I need to get to 1,000 subscribers. Like, I gotta promote myself. Okay. Focus. Eyes open. Ears alert. Okay. So, how did he die? We don't know. I sub, thank you.
There's no confirmation on what killed him, but there are a few things to consider. The throne room is incredibly dark compared to the rest of the palace, and the particle effects and ambient track in this room are identical to that of the Abyss. All of the king's molds surrounding the Pale King are dead. The ancient
Oh,
basin
you guys
itself
are suffering
also has
well,
become
goodbye.
stained with the presence of void, as
The
it can
Pale
be
King
seen as
screwed
high
things
as the
over by
rundown
being a good
elevator
dad.
shaft leading back to the city. Remember that bug that was sealed away in the Abyss to make sure the lighthouse wasn't turned off? Well, the lighthouse was turned off. I guess that whole living with purpose thing is a crock of shit after all. It seems as though the Sea of Void itself actually convinced this bug to betray his king. Done, the only citizen left standing is Eternal Emelita. She just laughs
I
her
love
ass
her.
off about it like she's a fucking Dark Souls character. The White Lady ends up in a cocoon deep within the Queen's gardens. She decided to place bindings on herself in order to keep her from spreading her seed. She claims that this is because of the shame she feels in helping the Pale King create the vessels, but honestly, it's probably just her kink. The White Lady
so
also diminished
pretty.
her power, possibly as a way to keep herself hidden from unwanted visitors. Outside her cocoon, Drya stood guard, protecting her queen from the violent traitor mantises. Drya is eventually killed off by these bugs, which is actually pretty pathetic if you think about it. I mean, we're talking like the Netgear WPN824N N150 wireless router pathetic.
I just think she's pretty.
Speaking of great knights dying pathetically, let's move on to Hagemul. Hagemul held the city crest, a key used to open one of the gates to the City of Tears. At some point, Hagemul's armor shell was stolen by a maggot. Now, maggots were generally looked down upon and forced to do menial labor. They were
I love the
incredibly weak
maggots.
and basically deserved all of the discrimination they got. But this one maggot decided to turn the tide, so he stole Hagemul's shell so that he could defend his downtrodden brothers. His actions weren't motivated by the infection, but instead was the result of how hierarchical caste systems will always lead to revolution from the working class, and that true freedom can only be achieved blah blah blah, capitalism is bad, subscribe to my Patreon. Olgrim moved to the Royal Waterways and started living in shit, changing his name to Dung Defender. Now I love wallowing in shit as much as the next guy, but you'd have to really love shit to put up with living with the flukes. The Dung Defender kept
Nah,
an
they're
unwavering
great.
sense of duty and loyalty to the king, and love for his fellow knights. So much so that he made shit statues of them.
I need
How
to
nice.
find those.
Olgrim acted as the defender of the pipeways, as well as Isma's Grove. A section of the Royal Waterways became filled with acid, and
Sorry, Bones says smash or pass all my characters. Sure. Okay. So anyways, acid in the waterways, right?
in the middle of it all rests Isma's corpse, which has been overcome by plant life. Isma is likely the one responsible for this acid blight, but we have no idea what happened to her. Hornet's whereabouts during this time are fairly mysterious. We know that she departed
She's
Deep Nest and didn't
adorable.
return until the events of the game. At some point, she took to guarding Halnest from intruding warriors, as well as the cast-off shell in the Kingdom's Edge. Despite the Kingdom's woes at large, fortunately this fate did not befall one of the fandom's favorite characters. The Menderbugs continued to fix the broken signs and wayposts of Halnest. From a diary entry, we can
Bless
see
their
that one
hearts.
Menderbug in particular had found himself on the precipice of a long and loving relationship.
Hello again, Diary. Not long now until the next Minder Bash. For us stealthy types, we're a riotous bunch when we get together, and Minderberry kept flashing me that smile. It might be time to muster my courage and act on it. I love my home and my life, but sharing it with another? Why, that'd be the berry on top.
Greenpath also underwent some changes during this time. The Mosskin were waiting for Un's call, which would bring them
Menderbug,
back
my
into the
beloved.
dream they were originally born from. But
They're
for some
adorable.
reason, Un's strength deteriorated. We don't know why this happened exactly. Was it due to the White Lady claiming part of her kingdom? Was it somehow due to the infection? Some Mosskin believe that Un went into hiding, but it appears as though Un is, in fact, calling to her children. But many of the Mosskin are unable
This
to
is so
hear
funny.
a call. Instead, many
Is it?
Mosskin seem to have taken the Radiance's infection into their leaves, which might explain why Greenpath became overgrown with vegetation despite Un's deteriorating powers. Mossy vagabonds even openly chose to forsake Un and worship the Radiance.
Hollow Knight is beautiful.
Another tribe
It
to
really
be screwed
is.
over by the Radiance is the Hive, which fell to the infection after the death of their leader, Hive Queen Vespa. But it appears as though this had little effect on their civilization. The Radiance's hive mind was already familiar to the bees, since the hive probably operated under something similar already. So in other words, the hive probably made out the best in this whole situation. Let's turn our attention back to
Wait,
the
I'm
moths.
confused. How did the Hive do well? What? So they were like taken
Death of their
over.
leader, Hive Queen Vespa. But it appears as though this had little effect on their civilization. The Radiance's hive mind was already familiar to the bees,
Oh,
since the
okay.
hive probably operated under something similar already. So in other
S-
words,
swapping
the hive
one
probably made out the best in
Operating
this whole
system for
situation.
another, I get it.
Let's turn our attention back to the moths. After all, it's their god that keeps killing everybody. Well, the moth tribe didn't fare too well, actually, as pretty much the entire tribe died out. The only known survivor is the seer. Despite the loss of her tribe, the seer continued to tend to the graves in the resting grounds, while also waiting the arrival of the wielder, a mysterious being that her tribe has dreamt of for a while. In the Kingdom's Edge, the land became covered in ash molting off of the worm's decomposing corpse. The Colosseum of Fools continued to thrive. The Lord Fool passed away at some point, but nobody really seems to
Hello,
notice
Seer.
or even
Seer's
care.
amazing.
The fools inside the Colosseum were infected, but still seem to have maintained control over themselves. It seems possible that these bugs took in the infection willingly, similar to the Traitor Lord and his followers. This would have given them an edge in combat, similar to using steroids, but without the whole shrinking testicles thing. However, even the Traitor Lord and his followers went mad, so what makes these fools any more special? As for the Pale King's champion, the Pale Lurker, well, she just went the normal kind of insane. There appears to have been another unforeseen event with the Pale King's plan. When the Hollow Knight was originally chosen, the door to the Abyss was sealed, trapping the discarded vessels within. But apparently, some vessels didn't get the memo. Vessel corpses can be found littered throughout the kingdom. There's one in the Ancient Basin, one in Greenpath, and several trapped in Nosk's lair in Deep Nest. Another vessel that escaped from the Abyss is the player character, the Knight. The exact details on how the vessels escaped the Abyss is unclear. There are indications that they might have slipped into Deep Nest through some old passageway, given void influences in part of the area, and all the corpses found in Nosk's lair. At some point, all entrances to Hollownest were closed off, with the old well and Earthmouth being the only way to sneak back in. Despite this, several people have wormed their way into the kingdom, with few ever returning. Characters like Relic Seeker Lem seemed content to
Hello.
just pillage artifacts from the ruined kingdom, but other bugs seemed interested in something greater. In the Howling Cliffs rests the corpse of a member of the Grim Troop. The task of this bug appears to have been to seek out Hallownest, so that the troop might be summoned to the kingdom in the future. The Grim Troop are basically a group of bugs that serve a higher being known as the Nightmare Heart. The troop keeps the heart alive by feeding on the nightmares of fallen kingdoms. This process also involves sacrificing the troop master to his own child because,
Wait.
feeding that serve a higher being known as the Nightmare Heart.
Yeah.
The troop keeps
Okay.
the heart alive by feeding on the nightmares of fallen kingdoms. This process also involves sacrificing the troop master to his own child because,
Okay. Okay.
hey, look at this cool ass boss battle. Another
Convoluted.
important group that traveled to Hallownest are the God Seekers. After being abandoned by their old gods, the gods of thunder and the gods of rain, these bugs left their home in the land of storms, seeking out a new god to worship. The God Seekers looked to gods to save them from their own silent mind. While traveling through the wastelands, the God Seekers constructed devices called God Tuners, which helped them seek out new gods. Through this
Right.
device, they were able to detect the lingering power of the Pale King and find their way to Hallownest. When they
Can't
arrived,
have a
however,
religion without
the God Seeker
sacrificing
was
a
forced
few
into
people.
hibernation. She was
Can't have a religion without sacrificing a few people. I can see why there's a big fan base. This is so interesting. Their bug. So, who is this? This is the...
nest. When they arrived, however, the God Seeker was forced into hibernation. She was
Okay.
encased in a strange sarcophagus-like cocoon, which was itself chained up with a lock. It's not clear how this forced hibernation worked, seeing as the cocoon appears to have been made by the God Seeker herself. As for who put the
Right.
cocoon in chains, I think the most likely candidate is the Dung Defender, considering how the God Seeker's cocoon is found in the junk pit in the waterways, an area the Dung Defender has tasked himself with protecting. This was
Right.
the general picture of Hallownest after the Hollow Knight was sealed inside the Temple of the Black Egg. The kingdom was stuck in a kind of stasis, with the Pale King civilization destroyed and the Radiants unable to
God-Seeker is
break free from her
God-seeking? Makes
chains.
sense.
The Pale King was rebelling against nature, trying to keep his work standing indefinitely. The stasis over Hallownest held for an age. How long is that exactly? Well, we have no idea. As I'm sure you've noticed, there really isn't a timeline for anything that happens in this game.
Relatable.
We also have no idea how long any of these bugs can actually live. Elderbug wasn't around to see the Stagways open, but we know several other characters were, implying that Elderbug is probably one of the youngest characters in the whole game.
What?
But this stasis over Hallownest wasn't going to last forever. At some point, the Radiance erupted out of the Hollow Knight, cracking its shell and releasing a loud and powerful roar. The amount of infection leaking out of the Hollow Knight
Is your character a deer or a wolf? I'm a deer. I'm based on like a white-tailed deer and a water deer together because I like the fangs. It's just fun.
Not so Elderbug.
Not so Elderbug. Old in spirit. I get it. All right. So infections leaking.
became even greater. The many corpses that lined the roads and cities of the kingdom sprang to life with the amplified power of the infection. This strengthened infection prompted the departure of the Weavers back to their old home. Now this old home might actually be Farloom, the kingdom in which Hollow Knight Silksong takes place.
What?
But the amount of knowledge we have about Silksong right now is pathetic, so I'm not saying that's confirmed or anything. This
it's
is
so
also around the
smooth.
time that Quirrell arrives back in Hallownest. His memory of Motomon appears to have been clouded due to his time outside of Hallownest. These events are depicted in the Quirrell prequel comic, which also shows an image of the
Alexa, let there be light.
Okay.
Damn, we've been at this a while.
Hollow Knight with a pre-cracked shell. This could mean that Quirrell's arrival happens roughly the same time the Hollow Knight's shell cracks. At around the same time Quirrell arrives in Hallownest, we also see the arrival of the player character, who is commonly referred to as the Knight.
Little
The
guy.
Knight was one of the lucky vessels that was able to make its way out of the abyss. Somehow the Knight ended up venturing beyond Hallownest and into the wilds beyond. It's implied that the Knight was called to Hallownest by either the sealed Hollow Knight or the Radiance within. Regardless, once the Knight shows up and yeets itself off this cliff, the actual game of Hollow Knight finally begins.
Hey, we started the game, guys.
Now, there's a lot of details we could get into. Hallownest is full of NPCs and bosses, each with their own stories to tell. But to be
Yeah.
honest, I don't think we need to go through all of them, since their stories are relatively straightforward. For example, let's look at the
I like
brooding
Baby
Moloch.
Deer is cute and
So why is the
adorable.
brooding Moloch brooding? Because all its friends are dead.
Aw.
And there you go. That's the lore for the brooding Moloch. Also, it's the only character in the game with a visible asshole. Now, did you really need me to explain that to you? Probably
Yes.
not. So instead, I'm just going to talk about the interactions relating to Hollow Knight's main story.
You should watch the
The knight
Godseeker
is
lore
eventually
video.
noticed by Hornet,
should.
who lures it deep into Greenpath. There, Hornet attempts to kill the knight, claiming that she knows what it would try to do. At this point, Hornet views the knight as being too weak. After the fight, Hornet can be found in the City of Tears, next to the statue of the Hollow Knight. Hornet mentions that the knight has gained a resilience, due to the time it spent in the void beyond Hallownest. This could be referring to the fact that some of those who leave Hallownest lose their memories, meaning the knight would have no memories of its own tragic conception. Hornet tells the knight that if it seeks to continue the stasis that keeps Hallownest standing, it must seek the Graven Ash, which
So
is
like
referring to
Quirrell.
the Kingdom's Edge. At this moment, Hornet sees the knight as a possible replacement for the Hollow Knight. Basically, the knight could break the seals that keep the Hollow Knight locked away, defeat the Hollow Knight, and contain the infection itself. It's
Slurp
at
it
this
up.
point that I should mention that Hollow Knight actually has 5 different endings, because of course it would. I'm going to be explaining
Really?
each of these endings
I
in
didn't
this
realize.
video, as they each give us a different glimpse into the mechanics of Hollow Knight's world. Now, to get the easiest
We got
ending
3
to
of
Hollow
them.
Knight, Hornet's instructions to go to the Kingdom's Edge can be ignored completely. If the knight stumbles upon the resting grounds, the 3 dreamers will appear and cast the knight into the dream realm. There, Seer will come to the knight's rescue and grant it the Dream Nail, a special blade that can
Yeah,
tailor
there were
the veil between
several
the real
endings.
world and the dream world. With the Dream Nail, the knight can venture to the resting places of the
There's
3
6. This is a
dreamers,
lie.
curb stomp their asses, and unlock the entrance to the Black Egg. Inside the egg, the knight finds the Hollow Knight chained up, silently watching over it. Once the chains are broken, the Hollow Knight screams with that familiar Radiance roar and pursues the knight. As the
Why
fight
kill the
progresses,
poor
the Hollow
children?
Knight starts trying to kill itself, Quirrell style. But then the Radiance starts using the Hollow Knight's body to perform her own attacks.
Okay,
Once
that'll
defeated,
make
the Hollow Knight
sense.
begins to spew infection all over the place. The knight can then focus the infection into itself. This
No,
results in the first
there
ending
is
of
5.
the game, called
6
Hollow
is just
Knight.
a reskin.
In this ending, the knight usurps the Hollow Knight, prolonging the stasis over Hallownest. New chains and bindings appear out of fuck if I know, and contain the knight, and a new seal is placed over the entrance to the Black Egg.
Wow.
Now there is one giant
Okay.
question looming over this ending. Can the knight actually contain the infection indefinitely? Or will
Totally,
the
I
Radiant
believe
still
in him.
manage to break free one day? Before we answer this question, let's look at some of the other events that can transpire while playing the game. If the player chooses to go to Kingdom's Edge, Hornet will challenge the knight one last time as a final test of strength. After her defeat, Hornet allows the knight to access the cast-off shell, where the Pale King was originally hatched.
Yeah.
By interacting with this egg, the knight's shell is marked with the king's brand,
Everyone say
technically
egg.
making the knight the new ruler of Hallownest. With the king's brand, the knight can now open the entrance to the abyss and discover the place of its birth. When leaving the abyss, the knight can encounter Hornet again, where for the first time, Hornet suggests that there are actually 2 outcomes the knight can enact. She tells the knight that it can either prolong Hallownest
Guys, it's only
stasis
2.
or face the
Hornet
heart of
just
the
said.
kingdom's infection. Within the night, Hornet sees a chance for change. Instead of just replacing the Hollow Knight, Hornet believes that it may be possible to get rid of the infection completely by using the void inside of the knight. After visiting the abyss and obtaining the Shade Cloak, the knight is capable of reaching the White Lady, hidden away in the Queen's gardens. The White Lady tells the knight that she has been awaiting a vessel to accept a gift. That gift being one half of a charm called the King's Soul, which she claims will give the knight more power. The White Lady goes on to explain that she can feel the weakening of the Hollow Knight within her roots. She tells the knight that it is free of the blemishes that made the Hollow Knight a flawed vessel. From this dialogue, it is implied that the knight truly is a pure vessel, capable
He's
of
so
containing
pure.
the radiance successfully.
Yeet darkness out of him.
But it's not quite that simple, so we're gonna have to dig a bit deeper into this. Basically, we're gonna need to answer a simple question. What exactly does it mean to be a Hollow Knight? Despite the White Lady's words, we have a number of instances where the characters and item descriptions mention that the knight has a will, and maybe even a mind. But from the
Yeah.
Pale King's dialogue when describing
My
the Hollow
mind.
Knight, it is stated that a pure vessel has no mind or will. So is the White Lady wrong? Or maybe even lying? Her eyes have been clouded by time, and she can be tricked into thinking that Ogrim is in the room when the knight is wearing the Defender's Crest charm.
Okay.
She also thinks that Dryia is still alive, which, So maybe the White Lady is just senile. My problem with that theory is that the
I
White
like
Lady
a
states
gilf.
that the vessels stand out to her clearly in a misted world, due to them being her spawn. She also questions whether or not the knight sought her aid, which would imply that the knight must have some kind of will. So for whatever reason, the White Lady thinks the knight is still capable of containing the radiance, even if it's still able to make decisions. After all, the Hollow Knight was considered pure, but they still taught it how to wield a fucking sword. I mean, if the knight were truly and completely hollow in a literal sense, it probably shouldn't even be able to walk, or draw a map, or open a goddamn bank account. In short, this whole concept of being hollow is so abstract
White
and
lady
hard to
has
define.
dementia.
I don't really
Sad
feel comfortable
face.
giving a solid answer on whether or not the knight is or isn't truly hollow, and I think the game leaves room open for other interpretations. Of course, the White Lady's gift is useless without the other half of the King's Soul. In order to reach it, however, the knight must travel to the White Palace, locked inside the body of a King's Mold. In order to
Bones,
bypass the
do
seal,
not the
knight
senile
must
tree.
use a fully awakened dream nail. It can do this by bringing 1800 essence to the seer, allowing her to
Okay.
sharpen the weapon's blade. If the knight does
We did all this.
the
That's why I'm
seer
very
remarks
quiet.
that the knight
I
truly
understand
is
this
the wielder
part.
that her tribe has been dreaming of. There's no
Bones,
explicit
do
reason
the
why
hot
the
tree.
Moth tribe was dreaming about this supposed wielder so much, but it seems like they believe the wielder would wash away the crimes the Moth tribe committed by turning their backs on the Radiance. The seer seems to know that the knight might kill the Radiance, and she seems accepting of it, ready for her and her tribe to disappear and be forgotten forever. With the awoken dream nail in
Goodbye,
hand,
Moth.
the knight can travel to the Pale King's refuge and locate the other half of the King's Soul charm. When equipped, the King's Soul provides a never-ending supply of soul, making it almost useful if it weren't for the insanely high cost of the charm, and the
Not in
painfully
my
slow rate at
playthrough.
which it increases,
Not
and
never
the
ended my
fact that the
turn.
charm will get replaced in about 5 minutes after you get it. The King's Soul charm itself symbolizes the union between two higher beings. To me, this implies that the King's Soul is a representation of a vessel, which also was created by the union of two higher beings. With the King's
That
Soul in
makes
their
sense.
inventory,
It
the
looks
knight now gains
vessel-y.
access to an area in the abyss called the Birthplace. In this massive pile of vessel shells, the knight can find a giant egg. Dream nailing the egg allows the knight to access its own memory when it was cast down into the abyss. From viewing that memory, the King's Soul charm is replaced with the Void Heart charm. The recollection of this event allows the knight to come to terms with the void inside itself. Once the knight has the Void Heart, the shades in the abyss no longer attack it, and that strange creature that gives the knight the Shade Cloak calls it the Lord of Shades. In
What?
other words, the knight has now bound the once fragmented void under its own will, allowing it to control the void in a powerful new way.
That's
With
crazy.
the union of the void, the Pale King, and the White Lady, the knight has gained a strength before unseen. It is with this charm that 2 additional endings become unlocked.
Hi, Milk
Hornet will now
Defender.
be standing outside of the Black Egg, offering to help the knight should the opportunity arrive. Midway through the fight with the Hollow Knight, Hornet rushes into battle, subduing the Hollow Knight and piercing its shell. It's at this point that the knight is given the perfect opportunity to enter into the mind of its sibling, fighting the source of the infection.
He's
head
not
on,
gonna do it.
and
He's gonna
finally
get the
putting an
ending
end
I
to the
first
Radiance's
got.
tyranny. Or it can just stand there and let Hornet get knocked unconscious. If the knight finishes off the Hollow Knight as usual, the sealed sibling ending occurs. Basically, it's the same as the Hollow Knight ending, but now Hornet is in the room too, and her face appears on the door of the Black Egg. It's not clear what exactly this means for Hallownest. This might imply that Hornet is now a dreamer, but she's inside the temple, meaning that no one can actually get in there to kill her should the knight ever start leaking infection. At the same time, Hornet mentions that the bindings of the Black Egg would drain her, so she's probably just going to die anyway, right? Generally, people consider this to be one of the worst endings, but it's worth pointing out that Team Cherry doesn't support any one ending as being the true ending. Each ending is canonical in its own right, and honestly, this ending isn't the worst. At least the Knight and Hornet
I
will
met
get to
Mr.
spend
Mushy.
some quality time together. If the Knight does dream nail the Hollow Knight, it will be taken to an arena where it can finally
We
fight
love
the Radiance
muffins.
head
Muffins
on.
are delicious.
But the Knight
delicious.
isn't alone, as the other shades from the Abyss will
Okay.
appear in order to help corner the Radiance. Eventually, the Radiance gets trapped in the tendrils of the Void. The Knight bitch slaps her a couple times, and then the Radiance is consumed into the darkness. The Black Egg then appears
Yay.
to turn to shadows, and the Void seeps down into the ground. Hornet awakens to find the Knight's broken shell lying on the floor.
Grab some milk.
We get one final shot of the shades in the abyss going to rest, and the game is over. This ending is called the Dream No More ending. The Radiance is gone, and Hallownest is finally free from her infection. Now I think it's fair to ask a few questions about
And
how
yes,
the
the
Dream
sun
No
is
More
but a
ending
moth.
comes about. When the Hollow
Yeah,
Knight
I
was
have
initially
questions.
chosen to become the pure vessel, the Abyss was sealed up, and the rest of the vessels were left to rot away. But somehow, vessels ended up outside of the Abyss, and then one of those vessels was used to replace the Hollow Knight. Exactly how much of this operation was planned, if at all? The
Baldy,
White Lady was
Baldy.
waiting for a vessel. Did she have any communication with Hornet? Hornet was guarding the Kingsbrand, the only way for a vessel to enter the Abyss. How did she know it was necessary to guard the Kingsbrand from weaker vessels? Hell, if the vessels did escape the Abyss
We
by
should have
themselves,
thrown the Lumaflea
wouldn't it be
lantern into the
pointless
void
to
for
guard
the Radiance to
Kingsbrand,
chase.
since the vessels could just creep back into the Abyss the same way? I'm not going to provide any good answers to these questions.
These are a lot of questions.
Because God forbid I answer anything in this entire video. But I do want to point out that no plans to actually produce the Dream No More ending are explicitly stated in-game. So we can only speculate as to whether or not the White Lady or Hornet, or maybe even the Pale King, knew that they could defeat the Radiance by creating a Lord of Shades like the Knight. Regardless, the next two endings were definitely not planned. In fact, the last two
Oh,
endings
God.
that were added in the Godmaster update almost feel out of place. The Godseekers basically hijack everything to the point where you don't even have to enter the Temple of the Black Egg to beat the game.
Damn.
That's like beating Mario Bros without ever seeing Bowser.
Could
But on
you
the other
please
hand,
scream I'm
the
EP?
Godmaster endings basically reinforce
Nah.
that Hallownest does not exist in a
Just
vacuum,
embrace being E EP.
which can help the world of Hollow Knight feel more real. Because what else is reality but just a bunch of random chaotic stuff happening all the time? If the Knight finds the Godseeker in the Junk Pit, it will be able to enter her
Yeah.
mind and refight all the bosses in the game.
Whoa.
This is part of the Godseeker's ritual. They basically attune to the resonance of gods
Embrace
through
my
ritual
milk.
combat. This allows
Please,
them
no.
to ascend their minds higher, and eventually, through the use of godly focus,
Okay.
achieve communication with the god sleeping in Hallownest's heart, the Radiance. Now I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty convoluted little religious practice they have going on here. What's next? Are they going to start measuring the Knight's Theon levels? It's pretty complicated, but the point is, these Godseekers have some serious capabilities to fuck things up
Okay.
in Hallownest, as we're about to see. As the Knight makes it further and further through the four Pantheons, the Godseekers get closer and closer to making contact with the Radiance, locked away inside the Hollow Knight. At the end of the fourth Pantheon, the Radiance makes herself aware in this strange reunion cutscene between
Do
the
not
vessels.
embrace
Oh my
the milk.
God.
But she isn't the only one to make an appearance. The Void itself appears to go on the attack, rising up to meet the Radiance's call. It's at this
What?
point that the final
This
challenge,
looks so cool.
the Pantheon of Hallownest, becomes available. The Godseeker
Pantheon
finally acknowledges
5.
the Knight as being more than just a simple cringer, and they begin to watch the Knight more intently. After defeating like a bazillion bosses in the final Pantheon, the Knight finally comes face to face with the Absolute Radiance.
The needle.
A stronger, more enhanced version of the game's final boss. Finally,
Oh God.
the stage is set.
Literally.
After roughly 40 minutes of intense agony and tedious boss battles, the Knight has finally reached the ultimate enemy, responsible for the destruction of Hallownest. Truly, this will be a battle for the ages.
Wakey wakey, the
But
Radiance
first,
is up.
let's check in
Time
on
for
old pal
Pantheon.
Menderberg. As it turns out, he's still alive when the Knight arrives in Hallownest, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
still fulfilling his duty after all this time. Let's take one last look at his diary.
My lovely diary. Someone's gone and broke my favorite sign. Right there at the top of the crossroads. Keeps happening too. But you know, I just can't get mad about it. I should be thanking them, really. More chances to fix that beautiful, complex sign. And I've stocked up on spare parts, so I've no fear it'll ever stay broken.
Bless this little bug.
Unfortunately, the only way to ever read
Good
the
night,
Menderbug's
Lemons.
diary is to kill him in cold blood. I'm not sure why Team Cherry thought this was necessary, but the general consensus on Reddit is that they are bloodthirsty warmongers, so it checks out. But at least Menderbug's last moments will be spent fixing one of his favorite signs in the Forgotten Crossroads. It's comforting to think that his final seconds of consciousness were spent in total bliss, before we sent him hurtling into the
Why
infinite
not embrace
chasm
the
that is
milk?
oblivion.
Well,
Well, anyways.
I don't know.
The alternate fight between the Knight and the Radiance plays out differently than in the vanilla ending. This
Yeah.
time around, the Knight is not accompanied by any shades.
I don't know. I've never seen
Instead,
this.
after defeating the Radiance, the knight seems to transform into this
What the
monstrosity.
hell?
Now this creature goes by many names. The God of Gods, the Lord Shade,
Nu
the
not Mender
Devourer,
Bug D.
the Void Entity. But I don't really like any of those, so I will just call him Bill. Bill proceeds to completely annihilate the Radiants in spectacular
Jesus.
fashion. We are then treated to the Embrace the Void ending. Bill comes back
Guys,
down from
stop
the
trying to
sky,
make the
dropping into the rest of
Skug say
Godhome.
such
The
things.
Godseeker starts to get pulled into Bill by Void tendrils. We then cut to the Godseeker in the junk pit. Void starts leaking out of her eyes, and it appears as though Bill is making an escape back
Oh,
into
God.
the real world, which is probably a bad thing? Finally, we see Hornet standing outside of the Black Egg as the infection begins to disappear from nearby vines. Hornet hears footsteps coming from inside the Black Egg as the Hollow Knight reveals itself to her and the two prepare for combat.
Bill is
from this
grandfather.
cutscene, we can see
He
that
is
the
Bones'
Radiance's
third
death
parent.
in Godhome actually did kill her for real, meaning that the infection over Hallownest is now gone. This means the seals
Yeah.
inside of the Black Egg probably wore off, allowing the Hollow Knight to escape its prison. In other words, the Embrace of the Void ending is a goddamn cliffhanger, and we have no idea how Team Cherry plans to follow this up. The Hollow
What
Knight
the
is running
heck?
loose in Hallownest, and the Knight has transformed into a raging void monster that might try to destroy the entire kingdom, or at least what's left of it. What's even more strange
Good night,
about this
Oris.
ending is that the announced sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, doesn't seem to be related to this ending at all, but that's a whole different shit show. Obviously, the biggest mystery surrounding this ending is the appearance of Bill. Did this creature exist in the void already, or was it somehow willed into existence by the power of the Godseekers? Did the
Good
Knight
job,
turn into this
Godseekers.
thing, or did it just become a part of it? Examining a statue of this creature and other forms of the Knight grant the player a Hunter's Journal entry for an ancient artifact called the Void Idol, which might imply this creature might have been worshipped by the ancient civilization. But again, that's pure speculation. We don't know what
Right.
this worship of Void exactly looked like. Maybe the Void they worshipped took the form of something more
I
sinister.
only embrace Bill.
There is one thing we know about this monster though. It's weak to flowers. Yes, these things. As it turns out, those delicate flowers that Zamir has stockpiled up her ass are actually useful for something.
What?
They contain a strange power that even deters the White Lady from touching one. The Godseeker, however, is dumb enough to accept a flower from the Knight. If
Bill's
the player
so
does
cute,
this,
I want
instead of
plushie.
Void being released out into the world, this flower pulls a no you, and the Godseeker and Void disappear
What?
into thin air. The flower itself is described as giving off a pale light, which appears to connect it to the pale beings. Like I said before, pale beings appear to be some form of top-tier gods. As of right now, we are only aware of two, the Pale King and the White Lady.
Is that a slug cat
But the
next to you?
fact that
Yes.
Zamir brought these pale flowers from a faraway land implies that there are definitely more of them out there. Another small hint of the existence of pale beings are the pale ore items that can be found all over Hallownest. Did these come from the Pale King, or possibly some other pale being? And what exactly are they? Are they poop? In general, the Godmaster endings appear to be doing a lot of setup for future Hollow Knight
Uno
content.
reverse flower.
Like I said before, Hollow Knight Silksong doesn't seem to connect to these events on the surface, so we are in a bit of a bind when trying to discuss what these endings actually mean for the greater narrative Team Cherry is building. There's definitely a lot more to
Now I
consider
go
about
away.
what the Pale Beings are
That's
and
fair.
what properties they possess. And we also have plenty of questions surrounding the Void and how bugs have interacted with it in the past. It almost feels like we are looking through a keyhole, trying to grasp onto the totality of Team Cherry's creation. How powerful are creatures like Bill and the Worms? Where
Lame.
did things like the Void even come from to begin with? How much bigger is the world beyond Hallownest? Is Bardoon into butt stuff? But of course, that's the appeal of a game like Hollow Knight. Having all of the answers to every question would just ruin the mystery of the world. Plus,
Praying
if we
for
didn't
my
have
success,
questions
you
like
have a
this to
Discord?
waste
Yeah.
our time on, then what else would we be doing with our lives? Go outside? Ugh. And so this video comes to an end.
We did
Now, I know
it.
the average attention span of a YouTube viewer is 9 minutes, so let me leave you with a few takeaways. 1. Hollow Knight is a game about bugs. I know this may come as a shock, but it's true. Watch the video again, and this time, pay attention. You'll notice right away, I promise. 2. Murdering your own babies might not be such a good idea after all. I mean, this is obviously just my interpretation of the game's lore. Other people might have different views on the subject of murdering babies, and every opinion is valid, so I don't want to step on anyone's toes or anything. 3. Menderbug is fucking dead.
No.
4. Nothing is certain. This video probably has a few flaws in it. Trying to construct a cohesive narrative with the information
all
found
of
in
it?
Hollow
I think
Knight
we did
isn't
it.
exactly straightforward. I'm sure my views will change
Okay,
in
we
the
got 30
future,
seconds
and I
left.
encourage you to explore the lore yourself. 5. And this last point is fairly obvious, but I should mention it anyway.
Not Menderbug.
Cory in the House is the best anime.
Hey, we did that. I'm more confused. It cleared up some stuff, I guess. But man, that's lore for you. Where's the Discord? I think it's in the description, guys. Isn't it in the description? I'm more confused. I'm Dusty. No, don't do that to me. I mean, I did it. I watched the video. Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Guess what, guys? Guys, guess what?
Next up is to watch the 3-hour lore video of the affairs of pesting gods.
Oh, there we go. Snuffy has the Discord link. Guess what? Chicken butt. You got me. You know my humor. But I got a capture card. Well, I'm getting a capture card tomorrow. Tomorrow I have a capture card. We can play games from
Smash or pass?
Smash or Pass. I don't really have like a good list to look
Chicken
at.
jockey.
I don't. Where would I find like a good list of Hollow Knight characters to Smash or Pass with? Half-Life lore. Probably pre-made lists, honestly. Affairs of Passing Gods, please. But yeah, I got a capture card, so I can look into playing some more games. My game list.
What are
gotten
you
so big.
reacting next? Choose your video.
I feel like I might be reacting to my own dreams. It's just so late, so I might just head to bed, have some time alone. Thank you all for watching, though. I really appreciate it. You'd be surprised how little of the gameplay it spoils. So I'm not huge on like either kind of spoiler. I like to just play the game first, you know? I'm in the void. Here, I'm big now. I need like a shot of being able to like see my whole like bedroom, not bedroom, you know, like I need a setup for my little VTuber. But yeah, I'm gonna head out early tonight, and I don't know what I'll do tomorrow because I have a capture card, so I have so many game opportunities, possibilities. Good night.